Thank you, Jerome. Thank you, man. That was great. Appreciate it. My pleasure. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? Last week, you might have noticed it's a bit hot in here, and it still isn't cool to the point that I would like it, or maybe some of you, but we're working on that. And also, I mentioned last week that Geneva Price, the woman that does the call to worship, went in for knee operation. She had a stroke. I visited her this week, and she's doing just fine. And she shared with me something that's kind of carried with me throughout the entire week. She said, it's not easy, but it's very simple. All I have to do is just sit here and heal. And she wasn't worried. She had no angst about it. She was just really in her element, singing to the nurses and that kind of thing. Of course, she was on the morphine pump, and that kind of helped things. She was having a ball, actually. And I don't know if you got the real gist of what these two women are doing. They're walking for a wonderful cause, but they're walking across America, which is an incredible feat. And they're halfway there, and they're going to continue, and they'll arrive in Washington, D.C. at the National Day of Peace. Is that it? National Day of Peace. So our prayers go with you on that one. Life isn't always easy. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it is very simple. Even the lowly earthworm knows the early bird gets the worm quite simply means sleep late. Oh, gosh, I expected a bigger laugh than that. Oh, good. Who is that person? Mindful of how life works, the observant mouse quite simply knows the second mouse gets the cheese. No. Make a note. No more stupid jokes. Okay. Well, life is simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple. It's we human beings with these brilliant, masterful minds that we have that have a tendency to fabricate potential scenarios that are filled with complications and convolutions and complexities that overrun our system. And we drown in worry and anxiety, and we're paralyzed by fear, and we're shaken by anger and resentment, and we're engaged in a battle with life. And life isn't the enemy. Life never has been. Life is just what it is. Life is what it has always been. It's our resistance to the way it is that really causes the problems and the difficulty that we have. There was a Buddhist priest, and he noticed that one of the monks in his order around with him wherever he went. The priest thought this is a bit odd. He's so preoccupied with the way he looks that he can't go anywhere without a mirror. And he got a bit irritated because he thought the monk should be more concerned with what's on the inside rather than being so concerned about what he looked like on the outside. So he approached the monk. And he said, you need to be more concerned about what's going on inside of you and not quite so concerned about how you look. And I don't know why you're carrying that mirror all the time. Well, the monk pulled out the mirror and held it up to the priest. And he says, I carry this for when I'm in trouble. I look in the mirror and it shows me the source of my worries and it shows me the solution of my worries. And that's where it all begins inside us. You know, studying human behaviors have determined that if you wrote down every worry you've had, the last 100 worries, if you wrote each worry down on a piece of paper, you'd have stacks of worries. The biggest stack of worries would be 40% of the 100, 40 worries, and that would be worries about things that never happened. The second pile would be 30% of the worries, or 30 worries, and that would be about things you worried about in the past that the worry did absolutely nothing about. The third pile would be 12% of the worries, and 12% of the worries would be needless concerns about your health or self-esteem issues. The fourth pile would be 10% of your worries, and 10% of your worries are petty and insignificant that make no difference one way or the other. The final pile, the smallest pile, 8% of your worries would be legitimate, things that you had a right to worry about, but the study also showed that you had the inner resources, you had the ability, you had the capability to successfully manage that situation or circumstance that you were worried about. Now, worries are probably the biggest concern for our physical and mental health. And I got an email this week that taught me this illustration. I have a glass of water in my hand. Is the glass of water half full or half empty? There's no right or wrong answer to this. It's whatever you determine it to be. So let's say we don't care if the glass is half full or half empty. That doesn't concern us. So then I ask you, how much does this glass weigh? 6 ounces, 8 ounces, 12 ounces, 16 ounces? Once again, let's agree, it doesn't make any difference. We don't care what the glass weighs. What does make a difference is how long I hold it. I can hold this glass for 1 minute, there's not going to be a problem. If I hold it for 15 minutes, my arm is going to begin to tire. If I hold it for an hour, my arm is going to ache. If I try to hold it all day, I'm going to be in excruciating pain. And that's exactly the way our worries are. The longer we hold on to them, the more we carry them forward, our worries and our burdens, the more they weigh down on us. Now, as I hold that glass of water, the weight is the same whether I hold it for a minute or whether I hold it for an hour. But it gets heavier and heavier as I go along. And it's exactly that same thing with our worries. The more we carry them forward, the heavier they get, the more they wear us out, the more they wear us down, the more they tear us up, the more life becomes a very difficult struggle rather than a nice, easy walk through the park. Today we're going to talk about the Chinese philosophy called Taoism. This is the 5th part of a series called Ancient Wisdom of Old Religions. And Taoism is estimated to be 10,000 years old by some. Now, I find that incredible that a spiritual insight, a thought, spiritual direction from 10,000 years ago can still be relevant in this day and age. And the reason it's still relevant is because it is brilliant. It is simply brilliant. Taoism holds to the point that life is what it is, and the goal is to get to the mountaintop, which represents peace, love, and harmony. And it says there are many paths that go up the mountain, and we get to choose whatever path we want. So we can take the winding path, we can take the path that's straight, it doesn't make any difference, but it has to be the path of least resistance. Life is what it is. We're moving up the mountain to a place of total love, peace, and harmony. We can take the path we want, but we don't have to stop and resist various things along the way. Another thing that I find incredible is that Taoism, which is 10,000 years old, is very similar to the teachings of Jesus. Neither Taoism or Jesus engaged in a great deal of worship. Now, Christianity today does. We worship God, we worship religious leaders, we worship according to doctrines and according to creeds, but the way Jesus lived his life and the Tao, there was no worship involved. In Taoism, God is called the mother of 10,000 things. And 10,000 years ago, 10,000 things seemed like everything, it all. So the mother, meaning that which created or gave birth to, the 10,000 things, it all. The Tao literally means the way. The way life is, the way life unfolds, the way of the nature of the universe, the way for us to interact with life in a way that gives us the most satisfactory and purposeful results. Now, Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven as an existence here and now on this earthly plane characterized by love, peace, and harmony. The Tao talks about the way, which is an existence here and now on this earthly plane of love, peace, and harmony. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven won't come in a way that one can observe, for the kingdom of heaven is within. The Tao says the way can't be seen because it is within. Jesus said, seek and you will find. The Tao says, if you look for it inside, you will find it. They're very compatible. Now, this is what is interesting. Shortly after Jesus died, a small community of his friends and disciples gathered together, and their community was called the Way. And the Way wasn't Christian because Christianity hadn't been invented yet, but it was based on the way Jesus lived. It was the religion of Jesus, not the religion about Jesus. And there's a big, big difference. The religion of Jesus is the way Jesus lived his life religiously, day after day after day. The religion about Jesus is what the writers and the preachers and the high spiritual leaders have told us the way that we should be living our lives. So there's a big, big difference. When it comes to the Tao The primary symbol is called the yin and the yang. And sometimes you see it as a circle, and it's half black and it's half white. The black usually has a touch of white, and the white usually has a touch of black. And it represents the great polarity, or the great world of opposites that we live in. There's a picture of it on the front page of your bulletin. It isn't the black or white one, but it's a symbol. It recognizes that there are opposites in this world. But then it goes further to say that those opposites don't have to be in opposition to each other. And this is the whole point of the Taoist message. It's one of non-resistance. We can be opposites in any respect, but doesn't mean we have to be opposing each other. We draw on the example of temperature, for instance. There's hot and there's cold, opposites. But actually, they are both degrees of the same thing, which we call temperature, which measures heat. Hot is a high degree of heat. Cold is a low degree of heat. Freezing cold is the absence of heat. See, there is no cold, there's simply heat or the absence of it. Now, we have the luxury of being able to determine the temperature that we want to be in most of the time. We can air condition our homes during the summer to make it cool. We can heat our homes during the winter to make them warm. We can regulate the temperature. On days like this, or the days that we've had in the recent couple of weeks, we don't have to be outside all the time. We spend as little time as possible outside, and we move inward where it's cool and it's comfortable. That's what we desire. That's what we value. Now, the Tao holds that we can do the same thing, but instead of talking about environmental temperature, we're talking about emotional temperamental. What emotions do we want to have most often in our lives? We want the environmental temperature to be comfortable, cool, or warm, but what about our emotional temperance? How do we want that to be? Well, we value peace. We all want peace of mind. We like to be in harmony with each other. We want that. We like to exchange love. We like to receive love and give love. We all like that. Those are all emotional temperaments that we want present in our life. And we all have a specific degree that we desire. Just like we have a temperature or heat degree that we desire, or a cool degree that we desire, we have a desire, a need, we have a value that we base on the degree we want of these certain emotions. So what the Tao says, if you're moving down the path of life and you have a high degree or a high desire for peace of mind, and you move into a situation, a circumstance, a relationship, or thought, feeling, attitude, or perception that doesn't meet that degree, you don't stand and bang heads with it. You simply move towards that which you desire and leave that which you do not desire alone. Get it? There's the opposites. There's conflict and there's peace, but we don't have to be in opposition to the conflict. We can leave it alone and gravitate towards, move towards that which we desire. And it's that way in every single part of our lives. It's establishing the values that we want, determining the degree of that value that we want to have in our lives, and keeping our focus on that, and constantly moving towards it. And when things occur in our lives that disrupt that or bring down that degree of peace, love, harmony, whatever it might be, we simply wind our path around it and move forward. Another metaphor for Taoism is water, whether it be a river, whether it be a brook, or whether it be a stream. And water flows gently. If water comes into touch with an obstacle of some sort, it doesn't stop, it doesn't retreat, it doesn't do battle with it. It just gently flows over it, or it gently flows around it. And Tao says that our lives should be that same way. They should be lives of non-resistance. When we're moving down the path of life, if we come into some sort of an obstacle that hampers our peace of mind, we simply move around it, move over it, move beyond it.